Mogul. Celtic. Renegade. Timberwolf. Eagle.
Trailblazer.
Searchlight.
Lancer. General.
That was the 8th grade class of the Basis School in Scottsdale, Arizona, reciting a bunch of our recent presidents by their Secret Service code names. The United States Secret Service has the critical mission of protecting everyone in the presidential line of succession and also safeguarding the financial infrastructure of the United States. But they've also been making up names for presidents, world leaders, actors, airplanes, cars, and even a hotel. On today's show, we're getting to the bottom of that.
We choose to go to the moon.
Right now, you'll like me.
Practice? We're talking about practice, man.
Welcome to 5-Minute Trivia, where we're making the world smarter 5 minutes at a time. I'm your host, R.M. Zuberi. The United States Secret Service was commissioned by President Abraham Lincoln on the very day that he was assassinated. Coincidence? Yes it was, because the Secret Service that Lincoln commissioned had nothing to do with protecting presidents back then. They were a division of the Department of the Treasury and were established to clamp down on the scourge of counterfeit money after the Civil War. Everything changed after President William McKinley was assassinated in 1901. He was the 3rd president out of the last 9 to have been murdered. Clearly, this was becoming a problem, and Congress asked the Secret Service to assume the responsibility of protecting the president. So Theodore Roosevelt, who had been McKinley's vice president, became the first president to receive Secret Service protection. After presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy was assassinated in 1968, they expanded their protection to include major candidates along with their spouses and children. They hadn't abandoned their original mission of safeguarding the country's financial infrastructure and have only expanded that role since their founding. Besides counterfeiting, they also investigate bank fraud, identity theft, and cybercrime. But since the time of Harry S. Truman, the Secret Service has actually taken on another role, giving weird nicknames to people. Truman was the first president to receive a code name because of the advent of electronic communication. Radio wasn't encrypted, and there was a possibility that any rando with a walkie-talkie could find out what the president was up to. So they referred to President Truman as General, which would have confused everyone because Truman's highest rank in the Army was captain. Also, he called himself Harry S. Truman, even though he didn't have a middle name, so we have to wonder if anything about this guy was even real. So now that high-level government communication is fully encrypted, why do they still use code names? Like, why are Barack and Michelle Obama Renegade and Renaissance? Well, part of it is that it's tradition at this point. The rest is that it actually makes some sense. Remember, the Secret Service isn't just protecting the president, but the president's entire family. In the moment, you need to know clearly who you're talking about. Obama could refer to Barack, Michelle, or either of their daughters. So why don't they just use first names? Also confusing, John F. Kennedy had a son named John F. Kennedy. That's why JFK the president was Lancer, and JFK the son was Lark. Generally, all the code names for a family start with the same letter, and they're supposed to be easy enough to pronounce and understand that there's no ambiguity. Presidents are given a list of names to choose from. Ronald Reagan chose Rawhide for his career in Western movies. Biden chose Celtic because of his Irish background. Because presidential candidates also get code names, that means that a president might have more than one. George Herbert Walker Bush ran for president in 1980 and lost the primary to Reagan. During his campaign, he was known as Sheepskin, but then he won the presidency in 1988, and his new presidential name was Timberwolf. Codenames extend to everyone associated with the president, which includes the vice president and cabinet officials. Some of them can be generic and recycled, like Matrix for the press secretary and fencing master for the secretary of the treasury. Also, there's the occasional name that sounds less than flattering, like Dumbo for Jimmy Carter's budget director. Sometimes people get codenames just for being around the president, like actor Antonio Banderas, who once hosted a fundraiser for Barack Obama. The Secret Service calls Banderas Zorro for one of his more famous characters. And then there's all the other stuff. Riding the stagecoach to the castle means taking the presidential limo to the White House. But taking Cowpuncher to the Roadhouse means flying to New York City in Air Force One and staying at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel. The Waldorf Astoria was historically where lots of presidents stayed in New York City, so it got its own codename. A couple of world leaders have gotten codenames as well, but thus far, only one pope, John Paul II, who was somewhat fittingly called Halo. So next time you visit Washington, D.C., you can land at Reagan National Airport and go take a tour of the Capitol. Or, in Secret Service lingo, land curbside and see the Punch Bowl. That's this week's show. Special thanks to Miriam, Grishma, Miriam, Laya, Coco, Marissa, Farah, and Hannah for the intro. We'll see you next time, and thanks for listening.